But after that, we came to this kind of this lookout spot. And what ended up happening is it's like, oh, hey, that's cool. And then got on the four-wheeler and kept going. But then I was like, wait, no, go back and look at that. And so I went back and I looked at that spot. And then I just realized, oh my gosh, this was my dream from several months back. And we had no plans of going to Colorado when I had the dream. And it was almost identical to what I could remember. And remember, I even drew it out. And so when I got back home, I was like, that was it. And I just remember like, all right, why did I have this dream? What was the purpose? And for that moment, it was the beginning of realizing, hey, I'm going to have a gifting from God that gives me the ability to have dreams and then have understanding of those dreams, whether it's either in the future or if I get an interpretation from God right away. And since that moment, I started having, let's just call them baby dreams. And what I mean by that is nothing of real significance, nothing profound, but just little dreams that would come to pass. And through this process, it was a spiritual gift that God was training me in to learn, to understand, to interpret. Because you can't go from 1 to 100 with complete knowledge, understanding, and skill set. There's a training process that's happening. And so, so naturally, God took me on this path of having dreams, understanding them, being able to interpret them, and then them coming to pass in very small ways. It's like one day I would have a dream, and then the next morning I'd go to school, and then exactly what I dreamed would come to pass. And then learning how to not write dreams off. Because sometimes we write dreams off, and that was just a dream. But then it comes to fruition, and it actually had more significance. And so learning the balance of growing in that gift is something that God took me on a long journey of. And now, I'm in a spot where when I have dreams, sometimes they're immediately interpreted, that I'll know what they are. And sometimes, this is more rare, but sometimes someone will have a dream and tell me, and then I'll know the interpretation for that dream. Mm-hmm. That part is less rare for me, but it occasionally happens.
Gotcha.
So it's just this, man, I've had so many.
That's kind of amazing, and a long history of it too. I'm kind of the opposite of you in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of things you said that I was like, that's cool. I'm trying to remember to go back.
Well, we can go back whenever you want.
Well, for sure. Yeah, no, but all the way back to there's maybe, less than the fingers on my hand of dreams that I can remember that I've had. I very often wake up remembering a dream experience occurred. No clear sequence of events, nothing I can interpret about myself, just not there for whatever reason. So I think that's part of my fascination with other people's dreams. But then also the abstract connection thing, and you were talking about developing a talent. I've always kind of had this throughout my life of being able to make abstract connections and metaphorical stuff and interpreting symbols in broad ways, seeing all the different ways they might apply to situations. But the training process for me in this last year and a half, however long I've been doing this, is and I made a video on this way back in the day saying that, I consider myself, when I started this project, a level 1 wizard, D&D style. You're technically a wizard. You get your first spell book, you get your first spell, you can do the thing, you got the robes, but that's where it begins. That's when you're a serious beginner. You're not, there's a road and a process to getting better at this. And hopefully as folks have been watching my development, they've seen that it's improved kind of along the way. So there's definitely that training aspect of it too. Yeah. And you said on the idea of, what people would call prophetic dreams.
Yeah. Very prophetic.
So now you're definitely coming from a very Christian perspective, and your faith is important to you, and you're very open to that. And I am as well, but from a explicitly agnostic atheist perspective of there's more under the sun than my philosophy can encompass Horatio, Shakespeare style. So I don't discount those things, but it's very outside my psychological, biological, medical framework of where I believe most of this stuff comes from, except the stuff that I can't explain, which I don't dismiss, but I don't know what to do with it. So it's like I kind of set that aside and say, not my specialty. That did remind me, though, the second book, and we were talking about like the translating Latin and stuff. The second book I published was called The Mystery of Dreams, explicitly a sermon given by a 16th century preacher on how to properly understand dreams from a Christian perspective. So being agnostic, atheist, and open to all kinds of things, looking at dream interpretation, I go to the ancient Greek stuff. I go to the explicitly Christian stuff. I put out a audio series. You'll have to find it on Rumble or somewhere else. That was a Muslim perspective on dream interpretation. So, and I think it is very important, and to Christian folks who may be seeing me for the first time, I do not believe I do not believe I am in possession of any magical powers. The wizard thing is a branding, and it's a metaphysical, philosophical perspective. I have this idea of wizardry being a wise old man.
You remind me of the dyslexic agnostic insomniac.
Yeah, that's a guy?
Yeah, it's a guy. He stayed awake all night wondering if there really was a dog.
There you go. But this is also, so if I'm open-minded, right, without claiming to have communications with spirits or hearing the voice of God, I very much look at what I do as a gift in that sense of like, as much as I'm working to develop a talent, that talent came from somewhere. You can call it God. You could say this is a talent inspired or gifted by God for me to try and help people if I can, and give people joy and entertainment in the process. And I'm completely open to that interpretation as long as I feel like I'm using it for good. Otherwise, it's coming from somewhere else. It's not a source I want to be connected to, whatever it is. So you say God, the universe, biology, whatever puts in us what's there that we can use for that purpose. I feel like I rambled long enough. I don't know if you have any comments on all that stuff.
Fine. Well, in terms of, here's the thing. A lot of people, when it comes to Christianity or God or religion, there's this idea where because God is so big, it's hard for people to grasp because he's ununderstandable. And because of that, and sometimes there's a lack of, I don't want to say lack of proof because I feel like there's plenty of proof and evidence that we can look at for that, but there is a lack of, what's the word I'm trying to find? We don't have the capability of fully understanding, and I feel like that hinders a lot of us from even being open. And I'm not saying you specifically, I'm just saying people in general I've noticed. And one of the things that I realized in my own journey with God is that if he was understandable, then he'd be too small for me. If I could understand him, he'd be too small. And what I realized is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So God is outside of space, time, and matter.
Mm-hmm.
Because at a specific point, God said, in the beginning, time, space, God created the heavens and the earth, and then matter. And so he had to be outside those things in order to create it. And all we have privilege and understanding of is within space, time, and matter. So even when it comes to dreams and visions and stuff like that, we can hook ourselves up to science machines and do scans and neurons. But you're right, there's a spiritual aspect to dreams that is outside of space, time, and matter that's going to be hard for us to comprehend. And the only way that we can have growth in those is to come to God, I believe, not with a help me to understand it within space, time, and matter, but come to him because we want to know his presence and his likeness and bear his image here on earth. And through this process, we develop these spiritual giftings to do that, which happens through what I would call like a spiritual realm.